Shalom, everyone. This is Dr. August Rosado, evangelist with Today in Bible Prophecy Ministries. And we want to thank you so much for tuning in on this Thursday afternoon, coming to you live from our main headquarters here in Lincoln, Rhode Island. And it is great to be here with each and every one of you as the final week, I should say, of the month of January. It's coming to an end. Sunday is January the 31st, and as of next Monday, we will be in February. But what I am told, this weekend, we might get hit. I don't think we might. I think we will get hit with a huge snowstorm. And they are projecting that this snowstorm could dump between maybe 8 to about maybe 12 inches or more. Looking at about maybe a foot of snow. Well, that's a lot of snow. And so right now it's too early to project. We're going to get something, they said. There's no doubt about that. But we'll see how it goes come this weekend. And they say that this snowstorm is supposed to happen probably beginning at 11 p.m. tomorrow night, going all the way into Saturday. So if you live anywhere in the New England area, please be careful, especially out there, driving on the road. But, we're used to this stuff because we are true blue New Englanders. And so this stuff is like somewhat of a cakewalk for us. But I am glad that you have decided to join us on today's broadcast. And, of course, again, what I forgot to do, and I'm going to have to just bear with me right now, folks. Lately I have been blowing a little bit of a mind gasket, if you will, and forgetting to put the title on here for the upcoming study that we are going to be doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to type this out, but here we go. Because if I did not catch this, then it would have, all right, closed. There we go. Now you can see on the top, our study lesson for today is the King of the South and the King of the North attack. And we're going to be looking at Daniel chapter number 11. Daniel chapter 11 is one of those chapters you don't really hear preached at all. They shy away from this chapter. Like, just want nothing to do with it. They won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. But the chapter is a little bit self-explanatory. You got to look at a dual fulfillment. That simply means it was a past fulfillment. And eschatologically speaking, there is going to be a future fulfillment. So we'll get into that in just a few moments. When you have that opportunity, visit my website, todayinbibleprophecy.org. Subscribe to my newsletters by clicking the contact link. Give me your name and your email address. And just request that you want to receive the newsletters. And they go out every Friday. We got one going out tomorrow. And so we'd be more than happy to send you that newsletter. It goes through MailChimp. And I write articles. I list the 10 leading news stories of the week with links to them. So you click that link on, it'll take you to that news story. My speaking schedule is on the newsletter, and we have video that we put on there as well. So if you don't receive our newsletters, you can subscribe by, again, go to my website, todayinbibleprophecy.org, and just click the contact form. We also upload the newsletters to Twitter as well as Facebook. And when you click the newsletter on Facebook, it gives you the option of subscribers. You might want to remember that. Right now, as you know, we are simultaneously broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Now, Facebook, my page is public. So that means anybody can subscribe or watch on my Facebook. Not subscribe, but they can watch my Facebook video. And you can send me a friend request as well. So again, my page is public. Anybody can watch it. But if you want to send me a friend request, you'll have to send that to me. I do somewhat scrutinize friend requests to make sure I get the right people I want as friends. Sometimes I get these friend requests from people that are way out in left field, man, doctrinally or some other type of crazy stuff, and I refuse it. So I do look over your page, just like you know, I do look over your page. If I see you're on the up and up, I'll receive your friend request. I'll approve it. Now, with YouTube, our subscription rate is climbing. So right now we're at 638 subscribers. My goal is 1,000, and I need you to help me reach 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there. Just a little less than 400 something to go. So if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, find me, August Rosado, on YouTube. Click that subscribe button. You might have to create an account, I think. Click that subscribe button and then hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified when we upload a video. And if you do have to create an account on YouTube, it's free anyway. You don't have to upload videos, nothing like that. But you will be notified of videos that I upload. And follow me on Twitter. My handle is at Bible_prophecy or August Rosado at Bible_prophecy. And on Twitter, I list all the late breaking news stories on my Twitter account. And my Twitter account feeds into my website, todayinbibleprophecy.org. Now, I am scheduled this Sunday, January 31st, to preach at Adams Square Baptist Church in Worcester, Massachusetts. Chris Casey is the pastor, and he invited me to come and preach for them Sunday morning. If you live in Worcester or those surrounding areas, come and see us at Adams Square Baptist Church as I take a look at the book, looking at the political, setting the stage for the prophetic to be fulfilled. Teaching and preaching Bible prophecy for its plain sense interpretation. We'll see how it goes with the snowstorm that was supposed to be getting this weekend. But right now, as it stands, I'm preaching Adams Square Baptist Church in Worcester, Massachusetts. If I hear from the church concerning whether they're going to keep going forward or cancel, I'm sure they'll let me know. And so what we're going to do, oh, by the way, one more thing here, and that is our Israel Jordan prophecy scheduled for April 23rd to May 3rd. 11 days in Israel with 2 nights in Jordan. North Jordan at Mount Nebo, where Moses viewed the promised land. Deuteronomy 34:9. And then we'll go south to Petra, where the Jews will be held up for the last half of the tribulation period. Isaiah 16:1 4, Isaiah 26:20, Isaiah 63:1-6, Revelation 12:6, Revelation 12:4. And I'm going to be teaching you Bible prophecy on location in Israel and Israel. So if you like it, Hebrew brochure of the itinerary and the registration, then let me know. Make sure we get that out. Now, what we're going to be talking about right now is King of the South and the King of the North. King of the South and the King of the North attack. And I'm going to read out of Daniel 11, verse number 40. And at the time of the end, shall the King of the South push at him, and the King of the North shall come up against him like a whirlwind, chariot, and the horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter into the country, and shall overflow and pass over. So, King of the South and the King of the North come up against the he. Now, the personal pronoun for he would be the Antichrist, who will seek, challenge these countries who attack Israel because of the confirmation of peace in Daniel chapter 9 and verse number 27. Now, Daniel chapter 11 has, as I said, a dual fulfillment. Now, that just simply means there was a past fulfillment and there will be a future fulfillment of those prophecies in this chapter. The major players in the eschatological scenario of this chapter, futuristically speaking, are the King of the South and the King of the North. Those are the major players there, along with the beast, the Antichrist, along with Jordan, mentioned indirectly, as well as Ethiopia, Libya, and indirectly mentioned Russia and Iran. These are the major players in Ezekiel chapter number 38. Russia, Iran, Ethiopia, also consistent of Sudan and Somalia, and Libya. And so those are the major players, along with Turkey and Ezekiel, chapter number 38. But we don't see nothing of Turkey mentioned here in Daniel chapter number 11. So these are the major players in Bible prophecy. And they will attack coming from the north, Syria, and coming from the south, Egypt, sandwiched between Syria to the northeast and Egypt to the south would be the glorious land of Daniel 11:41. That will be the land of Israel. Well, that is the land of Israel. Daniel chapter 11 speaks of two foreign factions here. The Seleucids of Syria and the Ptolemies of Egypt. Warring, fighting for that piece of real estate. Major players in the past fulfillment are from verses 2 to 35 of Daniel chapter 11. And again, Ptolemies and the Seleucids went to war to gain control of that piece of real estate. And this was shortly after the death of Alexander the Great, when his kingdom was divided among his 4 generals. 2 of those generals, one from the Seleucids, north of what is Syria, and totally south of what is Egypt. They are going to war. I mean, it's a battle for that piece of real estate, especially that piece of real estate sandwich, Syria and Egypt. The glorious land, as I said, of Daniel 11:41. That piece of sacred real estate, the land of Israel. The Jewish prophet Daniel was so detailed, so accurate in his prophecy that critics and liberal theologians, and I use that term loosely, denied that Daniel could have written these prophecies in the 6th century BC because this is so accurate. Many of these prophecies were fulfilled between the 6th and the 2nd century BC. And there are future prophecies in the book of Daniel that are yet to be fulfilled. And what these critics and these so-called liberal theologians fail to understand is that God is sovereign. Don't let that word sovereign scare you because the Reformed theologians and Calvinists destroyed that word. God is sovereign, and he is fully capable of revealing these prophecies to his Jewish prophets. God can look down through the corridor of time and reveal the future to his Jewish prophets and his Jewish apostles. Daniel chapter 11, verses 2 through 35 cover 200 years of war between Egypt, Ptolemy, and Syria, the Seleucids. Please keep that in mind. Daniel chapter 11, 2 through 35 cover a period of 200 years of war between these 2 factions, the Seleucids, Syria, and the Ptolemies of Egypt. These wars took place between the 4th and the 2nd century BC. And that's the reason why these liberal critics hate the book of Daniel with a passion, because Daniel was precise, Daniel was accurate, and he knew that the God of Israel would reveal these things to him. Daniel's not capable of that. Daniel's a mortal. He's a sinful human being like you and I, even though he's a very godly Jew. Yet Daniel doesn't have that problem, but God does. And God can look down through the corridor of time and reveal these prophecies to his Jewish prophets. All these prophecies were written by Daniel in the 6th century BC. Please keep that in mind. Which is why, again, critics hate this book. They can't stand this book. And these so-called liberal theologians throw out the baby with the bathwater. They deny that Daniel was the author of this book. They'll take it that far. They'll deny that Daniel was the author of the book of Daniel. Well, then, if that is the case, then what do you do with Jesus' words in Matthew 24:15? When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. So Jesus confirms Danielian authorship, that Daniel is indeed author of the book of Daniel. Matthew 24:15, Jesus confirms that. So Jesus tells us who the author of the book was. And yet they will still be in denial because they hate the book of Daniel so much, especially the accurate prophecies that are contained in the book of Daniel. In Daniel chapter 11 and verse number 2, three kings in Persia, that's three kings. No, according to ancient history, these three kings, Persian kings, are Cambyses, who was Cyrus' son, Pseudo, Smyrtus, and Darius the First. Those are the three kings there. In verse number 3, the fourth king would be none other than Xerxes, or Assyrius. He's mentioned in the book of Esther. And then the mighty king in verse number 4 is none other than Alexander the Great, who conquered the known world at the age of 32 years old, but he died at the age of 32 as well. And when he died, his empire was divided among his four main generals who assumed control. But two of those generals, one is Seleucid, the other a Ptolemy. The Seleucids gained control of Syria, the Ptolemies gained control of Egypt, in the north and in the south. In verses 5 through 20, we see the wars between the various kings of the south, Ptolemies of Egypt, and the north, the Seleucids of Syria, and they have been fighting for centuries. 2 centuries, I might add. For 200 years. They have been fighting for that piece of territory. However, when we get to verse number 21, Daniel chapter 11, verse 21, we are introduced to an insidious individual. We are introduced to the vile person of Daniel 11:21. I can't believe that at a prophecy conference I preached that last year in Webster, Massachusetts. I can't believe this. One guy told me during the prophecy Q&A that the vile person of Daniel 11:21 was none other than Joe Biden. And I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't mean to be cruel enough like that. The pastor was like, "What did you just say?" I said, "Sir," I said, "your hermeneutic is way off. That is not accurate." When we get to verse 21, we are introduced to the vile person who's none other than Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes, who ruled from 175 to 163 BC. Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes was the last of the Seleucid rulers in Syria. So the vile person in Daniel 11:21 is not Joe Biden. That's what I mean, folks. We have lost all biblical integrity among Christians in the church today, especially when it comes to Bible prophecy. It is none other than Antiochus the Fourth Epiphanes. After defeating the Ptolemies in Egypt, he carried out extreme persecution of the Jewish people in the glorious land. That's Israel, Daniel 11:41. And he outlawed all Judaism. He outlawed all practices of circumcision, worshiping in the temple, animal sacrifices, reading Torah. He outlawed all of that. He even forced Jews to eat pig swine, an unclean, unkosher animal in the law, Torah. And he did the unthinkable. He polluted, he defiled the Jewish temple in Jerusalem by sacrificing a swine, a sow, a pig in the most holy place. I know it's commonly called Holy of Holies, but in King James, it's the most holy place. And when he did that, that led to a Jewish uprising by a priestly sect known as the Maccabees. The Maccabees led a revolt in which they defeated Antiochus IV Epiphanes and the Seleucid troops, and they regained control of their land and the temple. They cleansed the temple of the pagan defilement practices of Antiochus IV Epiphanes, and they rededicated the temple back to God. According to Jewish tradition, one day's supply of oil was found in the temple, and that one day's supply of oil burned for 8 days, which led to the birth of the 8-day celebration of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is known as the Festival of Lights or the Feast of the Dedication. And we see Jesus, a Jew, a rabbi in Jerusalem, celebrating Hanukkah. Because Hanukkah is called the Festival of Lights, it's called the Feast of the Dedication, because the Maccabees dedicated the temple back to God after cleansing it from the defilement of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. It says, and it was at Jerusalem, the Feast of the Dedication, and it was winter. And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. So, Hanukkah, or the Feast of Dedication, corresponds to Christmas. It's in the winter. And it is an 8-day celebration. And Jesus, as a Jew, celebrated Hanukkah, the Feast of the Dedication. So, again, you got to look at the scriptures for their plain sense interpretation and avoid try to find the right word here, folks. Avoid the nonsense. Avoid the craziness of those who try to say, well, that's not what Joe Biden and Dan want. Just absolutely, that's just insane. Antiochus IV Epiphanes, his evil reign is described in Daniel 11, verses 21 through 35. And Antiochus IV Epiphanes was a very wicked, insidious individual. He is also described in Daniel chapter 8, verse number 9, as the little horn. He's the vile person of Daniel 11:21, and the little horn in Daniel chapter 8 and verse number 9. And as the little horn of Daniel 8:9, Antiochus Epiphanes was the forerunner of the future little horn of Daniel chapter 7 and verse number 7. That would be the Antichrist. So we have a forerunner, little horn, Daniel 8:9, and we have a future little horn, eschatologically speaking. And that would be the beast out of the revived Roman Empire, the Antichrist. He's the little horn of Daniel chapter 7 and verse number 7. So, the World Israel News website, they reported looming danger of new Syrian Russian jet patrols along Israel's border. Now, that's very concerning to Israel because Russia is on Israel's border. They are patrolling on the ground and in the air on Israel's borders. Now, Israel's concerned about the joint Syrian-Russian jet patrol. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the path of the aerial patrol included the Israeli and Syrian Golan Heights. That's really close. It has seen regular Israeli airstrikes against suspected Iranian and Hezbollah positions. So this is very, very concerning to the state of Israel. I've been to the Golan Heights many times. And Syria, we can see Syria in the distance. And Russia is right on Israel's border. I'm looking at that, ladies and gentlemen, as early fruition, early opening of the seeds being sown for Ezekiel 38 and Daniel 11, 40 through 45. I want you to take a look at a video to see just how concerning this is to the government of the state of Israel.
Israel concerned joint Syrian-Russian jet patrol to limit IAF airstrikes. Israel is concerned amid Syrian and Russian military jets' joint patrol on Monday along Syria's airspace and borders, including the Armistice line along the Syrian border with Israel. Officials said they wondered what caused Russia's apparent policy change, after it had enabled the IDF to act freely against the Iranian entrenchment on Syrian soil and even increased the attacks in recent months. To halt the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, Quds forces plan to establish a Hezbollah-like military presence. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, the path of the aerial patrol included the Israeli and Syrian Golan Heights that has seen regular Israeli airstrikes against suspected Iranian and Hezbollah positions. The ministry also said the patrol flights will continue to operate on a regular basis. The joint patrol included Russia's latest fighter jets, the Sukhoi Su-34 attack aircraft, Sukhoi Su-35 multi-mission fighter jet, A-50 command and control aircraft, as well as the Syrian Army's MiG-23 and MiG-29 aircrafts. One possibility for such action is that the Russians estimated that a break in winter weather would prompt an Israeli attack in Syria and saw this as an opportunity to demonstratively thwart such a move. This may indicate the Russians think Israel exaggerated in its attacks in Syria. But it is quite clear that pushing the Iranians out of Syria is in the interest of both Israel and the Russians. Another explanation could be the growing tension between the United States and Russia over the situation in the Ukraine. And the Russians may want to signal to the Americans and NATO that their military capabilities include the Middle East, or perhaps even hope Israel might pressure Washington to avoid military conflict. Israel will have to see if the Russian-Syrian alliance will affect their ability to act against threats from Syria.
So, folks, we see the early stages, the seeds being sown of what we read in Daniel 11, 40 through 45. That mentions the king of the north, that would be Syria, who will attack with the king of the south, that will be Egypt, with Israel sandwiched in between. So we can see the early stages of that prophecy coming into focus. As we said in Daniel 11, verses 2 through 35, have already been fulfilled. That was a past fulfillment with this dual prophecy chapter. Now, when we get to verse 36, it introduces us to another king, a new king. And this cannot be a reference to Antiochus IV Epiphanes, since the details from verses 36 to 45 in this passage could not refer to Antiochus IV Epiphanes. So it's very important that we keep that in mind. Daniel 11, 2 through 35 have already been fulfilled. Verses 36 through 45 are yet to be fulfilled. That's the reason why I say Daniel chapter 11 has a dual fulfillment. Very important that we keep that in mind. So, king, verse 36, cannot be referring to Antiochus IV Epiphanes. This would refer to the eschatological little horn of Daniel chapter 7 and verse number 8, who comes from the 10 horns. There is no mention of Antiochus IV Epiphanes coming out of 10 horns. But in Daniel 7:7, the little horn, I should say Daniel 7:8, the little horn comes out of the 10 horns of Daniel 7:7, Daniel 7:20, Daniel 7:24, talking about those 10 horns. And Antiochus is never described as coming from 10 horns. In the book of Revelation, John the Apostle talks about the beast coming out of the 10 horns. That's Revelation 12:3, Revelation 13:1, Revelation 17, verses 3, 7, 12, and 16. So the king in verse 36 must be future. He is the prince that shall come, Daniel 9:26, future tense. He comes from the people who destroyed the city and the sanctuary. Well, that was the Roman Empire that destroyed Jerusalem and the temple in 70 AD. So this must be the Antichrist, the king, in verse 36, who will do according to his will. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, speaking marvelous things against the God of Israel. His work is described in verses 36 through 45 of Daniel chapter number 11. The king in verse 36 bears an inescapable agreement with the work of the Antichrist described in the New Testament in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, where Paul says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except the come of falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, and that is worship, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." See, back in the day, Antiochus IV Epiphanes defiled the temple by sacrificing a pig on the altar in the most holy place. Antichrist in the future will defile the third Jewish temple, not with a pig, but with himself. When he walks into the temple, puts a cessation to animal sacrifices. The third temple, which the Temple Institute in Jerusalem today is looking to rebuild. Not only that, Revelation 13, Revelation 17 talks about this Antichrist coming out of the 10 horn, a 10-nation confederacy. And we believe the European Union fits the bill to be the embryo, the infrastructure for the revival of that Roman Empire. Then, when we get to Daniel chapter 11 and verse number 40, these two nations, king in the north and the king in the south, move against Israel, and the Antichrist must act, do to the confirmation peace treaty he made with Israel in Daniel chapter 9 and verse number 27. King of the south, Egypt, will attack along with the king of the north, Syria, and both will be destroyed. In verse 42 of Daniel 11, as the Antichrist is overthrowing these countries, Syria and Egypt, one country will escape this onslaught. One country will escape destruction from the hands of the Antichrist. And that country is mentioned in Daniel 11:41. He shall enter also into the glorious land, that's Israel, and many countries shall be overthrown, Egypt and Syria. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. Wait a minute. Who is Edom? Moab, or in Hebrew they say Moab with a V at the end, is in Victor. M-O-A-V is in Victor. Edom, that's South Jordan. Moab, or Moab, that's Central Jordan. Ammon is North Jordan. Ammon and Moab were the sons of Lot through an incestuous relationship with his daughters, based on what we read in Genesis 19, 37 and 38. And then Edom, they come from Jacob's brother Esau. Esau, the father of the Edomites. Well, that's Genesis 36, verses 1, 8, and 9. So Jordan is an Arab country in which the upper two-thirds come from Lot and the lower one-third from Esau. It's an Arab country. They didn't come from Ishmael. Everyone claims that Ishmael's the father of the Arab world. That simply isn't true. He only fathered one Arab country, but I don't have a whole lot of time to develop that right now. We might do that on a future program. So Jordan escaped the hands of the Antichrist. Why? Because it will be in South Jordan, Petra, where the surviving Jewish remnant will be held up for the last half of the tribulation period. I gave you the passages. Isaiah 16, 1 and 4, Isaiah 26, 20, Isaiah 63, 1 through 6, Revelation 12, 6, Revelation 12, 14. When we get to verse 42 of Daniel 11, Egypt is destroyed and plundered. And when the Antichrist is done destroying Syria, he destroys Egypt, plunders Egypt, takes all the gold, all the silver, all the treasures. Then he hears of a military threat at his steps. Libya and Ethiopia are knocking on the Antichrist door. So now he has to go and destroy Ethiopia coming from the south, Libya from the west. Now, when he destroys Libya and Ethiopia, another military threat arises. And this one is in verse number 44. But tidings or news out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him, the Antichrist. Therefore shall he go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. So now he has to go and fight against these countries. Now, the threat coming from the east and from the north, the threat coming from the east is Iran, Persia, in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 5. Ethiopia and Libya are also in Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse number 5. Coming from the north, the threat from the north would be Gog, Magog, Ezekiel 38:2. That's Russia, along with Meshach, Tubal, Gomer, Togarmah, even though they're not mentioned in Daniel 11, they are in Ezekiel 38:2 and Ezekiel 38:6. Meshach, Tubal, Gomer, Togarmah. That is the Islamic State of Turkey today. So the threat from the east, Iran, the threat from the north would be Russia. They are also destroyed, but I don't think it's going to be by the hands of the Antichrist. God is going to destroy this Magog invasion that we read about in Ezekiel 39 and verse number 4. Thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and all thy bands of the many people that are with thee. But I'm sure the Antichrist will take credit for it. Now, after the dust settles and the smoke clears, the Antichrist is going to plant his headquarters. Now, you'll notice that it says in Daniel 11 and verse number 45, and he, that's the Antichrist, shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas, plural, the seas, in the glorious holy mountain. That's a reference to Jerusalem. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So after the dust settles and the smoke clears, the Antichrist will plant his headquarters between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. So what would be the seas, plural? Well, that would be the Sea of Galilee to the north, the Mediterranean Sea to the west, the Dead Sea to the east. And you can't see it on the screen right here, but if you go further south of the Dead Sea, you will see the Red Sea to the south. Those are the seas in Daniel 11:45. Antichrist will plant his headquarters between those seas. Sea of Galilee to the north, Mediterranean Sea to the west, Dead Sea to the east, Red Sea to the south. And of course, in between those seas would be the city of Jerusalem. You can see Jerusalem right there between those very seas. And so that is where the Antichrist is going to plant his headquarters. Why? To assure that there are no longer any military threats against Israel up until he breaks that confirmation treaty at the midway point of the tribulation period. Antichrist planted his headquarters upon the holy mountain, holy city of Jerusalem. Planted his headquarters between the seas, Sea of Galilee, north, Mediterranean, west, Dead Sea, east, Red Sea, south. But then, verse 45 tells us that the Antichrist himself will come to his end because he breaks the peace treaty with Israel. Then he starts persecuting the Jewish people. He'll do that for the last half of the tribulation period, the last 3.5 years, the last 1,260 days. We see that in Revelation 12:6. And the woman, Israel, fled into the wilderness, Petra, where she had the place prepared of God, that they shall feed her there 1,260 days. But at the end of the 7-year period of tribulation, Jesus returns by the space of the last 3.5 years, and he will destroy the Antichrist. Then we read the very last sentence in Daniel 11:45. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. Jesus will destroy him. And how will that happen? He will destroy the Antichrist and the false prophet and throw them in the lake of fire. And then we know that 1,000 years later, at the end of the millennial kingdom, Satan will join the Antichrist and the false prophet in the lake of fire, based on Revelation chapter 20 and verse number 10. We also read in Daniel chapter 7, verse 11, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. This is what the Lord Jesus will do at his second coming. He will destroy this unholy trinity. He will establish his kingdom, and at the end of that kingdom, Satan will meet his demise and be thrown into the lake of fire. Then there will be the eternal state with the new heavens, the new earth, the new Jerusalem. Isaiah 65:17, Isaiah 66:22, 2 Peter 3:14 and 15, Revelation 21:1 and 2, all talk about the eternal state. I'll tell you in closing, folks, this World Israel News story about Russia and Syria and their joint air patrols right on Israel's border, right on the Syrian area of the Golan Heights. This story with these two major players in Bible prophecy remind us that Bible prophecy will be fulfilled. And that is also telling me that the next main event on God's calendar of activities is the rapture of the church. That rapture must be so close at hand. All we can say to that is Maranatha. Even so come, Lord Jesus. That could even be today. And if you're not ready, you need to put your faith and trust in the Lord Jesus as your personal Savior. Call upon the name of the Lord and get saved. Be ready. Be rapture ready as a child of God. And all we can say to that is Maranatha, even so come, Lord Jesus. Let's say hello to some of our friends here. We have Artemio Cruz watching via YouTube, and we have Michael Popes watching through Bible Care and Share Fellowship. And when you have an opportunity, subscribe to Michael's channel. And I'm sure he's got some good stuff going on over there. So, Michael, I just gave you a little bit of a shout out there. And let's say hello to those that are watching via Facebook right now. And so let's see who we have here. I don't want to miss anybody. We got Debbie Smith. Hello to you. Amanda Tatro. Hello to you. Greta Sims Emery from Knoxville, Tennessee. Great to see Greta. Christine David Mishral. She'll be going to Israel with us April 23rd. Stephen Mitch Smith. We're so grateful that you have decided to watch us on today's broadcast. Don't forget, join us tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another Bible prophecy update as we look at the political, setting the stage for the prophetic to be fulfilled. Folks, you know that our ministry only survives, number one, by the grace of God. Number two, by your financial support. It is your support that keeps us doing what we're doing. Would you prayerfully consider putting us on your monthly giving? Don't take away from your church. Your love offerings belong to your church. That goes to your local church. Do not give to this ministry through your local church offering. Okay, if you want to give extra, that's fine. You don't hear these guys on TV talking that way. They can care less. These name it, claim it, blab it, grab it. If it's fine, it's mine. prosperity doctrine. It's unbiblical. But if our ministry has been a blessing to you, please prayerfully consider giving to our ministry, especially now that Dr. Todd Baker and I will be leaving for Israel March 13th for the 50th Israel Gospel Outreach. I need your help. I need your support with that. Some of you have given already because we thought we were going to go in December and then Israel shut the borders again. This time, they're open for good. Despite the cases that are right now peaking out there, which is good. They're peaking here in the States. That's good news as well. But they have now opened. Dr. Baker and I will be going in there March 13th. I need your help. Please, if you can send whatever gift you can to help us share the gospel with Jews and Arabs, that's greatly appreciated. Before we went on the air, I got a call from a church in Florida. And the pastor of that church, I preached there before. They want me to come back this summer. They said, August, we have a lady in our church who wants to start giving to somebody who is actually going to Israel and sharing the gospel with Jews and Arabs. And I recommend she gives to you. Give us your address so that we can send you a check. I was absolutely floored by that. Know what she said? Know what he said, rather. She doesn't want to give to Kufi. That's John Hagee's ministry, Christians United for Israel. You know why? They claim they're united for Israel, but they don't share the gospel with Israel. And they'll tell you that we shouldn't be sharing the gospel with the Jews. Undermining what Jesus did in Matthew 10:6, Matthew 15:24, what Paul said in Romans 1:16 and Romans 10:1. Pathetic. John Hagee says nobody should be evangelizing Jews. They're already saved with his dual covenant theology nonsense. But let me digress on that. She said, I'm going to start giving to ministries that actually go to Israel sharing the gospel. And the pastor of that church, Brother Curtis Harrington, said, Brother August goes there 3 times a year doing exactly that. So they're going to send us a check to help us with this 50th gospel outreach in March. We were so blessed by that. And that helps, by the way, folks, to cover for our car rental, gas expense, and other amenities out there in Israel. I don't need help with airfare. That's paid for. I don't need help with hotels. That's paid for. And with our breakfast and dinners, that's also paid for. But there are other expenses in between. Gas, which is very pricey in Israel. Car rental, that's very pricey. And other amenities that we include when we're out there. So that's where we need your help. Please use that PayPal link to help give toward the 50th Israel Gospel Outreach, March 13th, or to support this ministry in general. You can also mail any of your support to Today in Bible Prophecy Ministries, 143 Grove Street, Lincoln, Rhode Island, 02865. So either way, you can use the PayPal link above or my address below. Please pray about what God will have you to do. This Sunday, depending upon this big snowstorm we're supposed to be getting this weekend, I'm preaching at Adams Square Baptist Church in Worcester, Massachusetts for their Sunday school and the Sunday morning service. If you live out there, come join us, and I will be live streaming that service, and I believe Adams Square live streams their service as well. And again, if you want to join me in Israel for the Israel Jordan Prophecy Tour, April 23rd to May 3rd, 2022, get a hold of me. Request for a e-brochure with itinerary and registration. And I'll make sure that I send that out to you. So again, invite a friend, have them tune in tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So remember, keep looking up. Jesus is coming soon. The rapture must be so very close. And Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And Lord willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. God bless. Stay healthy, stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.